odds and ends on things. I said this to a group yesterday, but I didn't catch everybody, and everybody needs to hear it again. When you're doing blood draws with a syringe, when you're drawing up blood in the syringe, I'm choking like crazy. I'm not sick, I'm choking on a spicy pepper that I had, and now it's burning my throat.
Get some milk.
If you want to share what I got coming up, do that. Blood starts coming up the vein, right?
Correct.
If you stick your catheter in and then release your occlusion and just watch what happens, blood comes out, right?
Yes.
Okay, you all have experienced that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The speed at which that blood is coming out is the speed at which you want to draw with the syringe. Okay? So first of all, make sure you break the seal on the syringe and then reclose it before you hook it up to whatever you're drawing from. Okay? Otherwise you have to pull with a certain amount of pressure to break that friction seal that comes with all syringes. Secondly, you got to figure out that happy balance of as you're drawing on the syringe, it's drawing at the same rate that the blood would normally be dumping into it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Or about that same rate. If you pull faster and create a larger suction within the syringe, it will pull the blood faster. It has the potential to collapse the vein, which makes it hard. But as it's pulling that blood faster and with that much force, it'll burst the red blood cells. It's called lysing the cells. You'll lyse the cells, and if you lyse the cells, then the sample is worthless. And you can't tell that because it's all red. You can't tell it until after it's sent off and centrifuged down, and then all the plasma is pink. So you have to pull slowly on those when you're using that syringe. Does that make sense? All right, keep that in mind. Get into the habit of getting rid of the air in the syringe. It's not actually going to cause any problems, but it looks terrible, and it's really not the standard. So get rid of the air in the syringe. Air comes in the syringe automatically. So when you get your syringe of saline, turn it up and push the air out of it. Good? If you're hooking it to the administration set, hook it to the administration set, and before you flush the administration set, turn it up so the air gets pushed into the administration set first, followed by the fluid. And then you're filling the fluid into the administration set and dispelling all the air at the same time. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Don't make a habit of doing that. Some of you are getting down, you're pushing your fluid in your syringe right to the end, and then there's a little pocket of air, and then that little pocket of air is what gets sent into the extension set. And the extension set has these big giant bubbles sitting there, all right? And it's just not good etiquette. So get rid of it. The butterflies.
They're so easy. So close to you. She may have turned her hand.
Can be used one of a couple of different ways, and I'm forcing you into using it one way because I want to see that you can do it as part of it. So some of you have found that you have them as a blood draw unit, in which case you're placing the butterfly needle into the vein, drawing the blood, and then pulling everything out and throwing it away in the proper receptacle. Yes? Yes?
Always.
Excellent. Okay. So, right? But the butterfly kit is also an IV. It's also an IV. One use of it is for a blood draw, but it's also used as an IV. When it's used as an IV, the most common places for that would be in the hand of an adult, and usually a younger adult, an older adult, like a geriatric. And then you'll splint their hand so they can't move it, because you notice that the catheter is made out of what in this case?
Metal.
Yeah, the needle and the catheter are the same. This is a needled catheter. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The other thing that it's used for are scalp veins in infants. In fact, If you look at the box, what's the box say? All right. It's an IV for scalp veins. One, because kids can't bend their scalp, so it's okay. And it's easy to get in there, and it's a fixed size, so it's good to use that way. When you're using the butterflies, you need to be aware that you're having to bury the entire needle all the way to its hub, because it is the catheter. Does that make sense? So, those of you that have been doing it for me, I haven't been letting you do it as just a blood draw. I want you to set the IV and then do the draw off of that. That make sense? Some of these butterflies come with a lure lock, and some of them do not. This particular box does not come with a lure lock, which means you're going to have to place a lure lock on there. Good? Or hook it right to an administration set. One of the other. Good?
Good.
Okay.
Wait, I have a question. Why would you use that as your IV? Like, what would be an instance you would use that?
Mostly in kids,
Okay,
and mostly in scalp veins.
okay.
Sometimes you're using it in veins that have a tendency to collapse, or the catheter is so, you need a small catheter, but those little tiny catheters sometimes occlude very easily.
Okay.
And these won't occlude. I'm gonna need first aid soon. Is anyone trained?
Innovation?
I don't think
Was
so.
that rhetorical?
What's our state? What level of care do you need?
That's a great question. Let's keep it within whatever you're licensed to do right now. When you're redirecting, yeah, please give me some epi. When you're redirecting on your IV, I'm seeing a lot of you go in and then start moving around. Be aware that if you're not in the vein, and you're in their body, and you're next to their vein, and you're trying to get it into the vein, that any redirecting you do right here just pushes the vein around and pushes the tissue around, right? That's all it does. In order to redirect, you need to come back out, then redirect, then go back in again. Does that make sense? Every time you move it from wherever you are, you're just pushing tissue around. And if you're beside the vein, you're just pushing the vein to the side. It's not helping you at all. Get yourself back into alignment. So when you redirect, it's a bring yourself back out, redirect, and then go back in. Does that make sense? Also make those movements a little bit slower and more deliberate. So I'm seeing kind of a lot of, I'm gonna get the vein. And that's not, I mean,
Probably doesn't feel great.
well, I mean, they don't feel a whole lot, but they see it. In any event, it's a, is it there? Nope, I'm coming back, redirecting, going in. So fishing's not good, but at the same time, if you have to fish, then fish right, right? So bring it out, redirect, go in. Also, I'm seeing some people have kind of the habit of in and out, in and out. They're like trying to go in and out. But do be aware that if you ever go in and get the vein, your habit is already to pull out, which means you're in the vein and back out of the vein again, which means you just blew the vein. So get into the habit of going in, then moving, redirecting, going in. Don't get out of that habit of bouncing in and out. Does that make sense? Questions on that redirecting? What else did I see? Tourniquets. Oh my gosh. What are tourniquets used for? We shouldn't be calling them tourniquets, in fact. They are constricting bands. What's their purpose?
To occlude venous flow, but not arterial.
Yes. So cutting off their complete circulation in their arm,
Not good.
it's not doing you the, I mean, it is cutting off that venous flow, which is great, but it's actually not helping a whole lot to continue to fill those veins. All you need to do is restrict the venous flow, but you want to maintain the arterial flow. So it shouldn't be so tight as to cause them pain and discomfort. right? In the average person, in a person who is, got an average arm and not full of adipose. If you have someone that's full of adipose, it might be more difficult to deal with that, right? In which case, you might need to move away from a constricting band altogether. What else could you use? You could move to a blood pressure cuff, which is more comforting for them, and you can get it so that it's occluding venous flow but not arterial flow. Keep that in mind. Let's see. And then the last thing that I'm seeing, I'm starting to see a lot of, or I'm still seeing a lot of you are getting lucky when you're getting these, but when you have this set and you're ready to go on this type of catheter, right, which is the type of catheter that has the needle attached separately from what the catheter is attached to, yes?
Yes.
The habit for a lot of you is still, instead of pushing the catheter forward, the habit is to draw the needle back. And if you are not absolutely, wholeheartedly, full catheter inside that vein, when you draw that needle back and take it out of the vein, that catheter is not strong enough to continue to move forward. You've got to make sure you're pushing that catheter off the needle, not the needle out of the catheter. Does that make sense? Some of you are getting into that habit. You have a little bit of resistance when you push, and because of that resistance, it's less resistance to move backwards with your middle finger and thumb instead of pushing your forefinger off. And if that's complicated, if getting that started is complicated, then stop doing it one-handed. Move to the other hand and start moving it forward with your other hand. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Right? Questions? Okay. Just the hodgepodge of